Welcome to the Say Report, everybody.
Welcome to the Say Report. He totally stole it from me, but it's
I
cool.
did.
I'm going to get my bit in. Where currently Tom Petty exists in a quantum state, no one knowing if he is alive or dead.
Oh no. Schrodinger's Heartbreakers.
Dude, that's a great name for a Tom Petty cover band. As long as we play a show like tonight.
Yeah, right. Like immediately before and then we have to really apologize tomorrow if things go sideways.
And you know what? Like we're making light of the situation, but I had, there's a comedian, Jeff Tate. He's on Douglas movies all the time. I've met him. We've hung out a bunch of times. And one of the first things he did to me, he let me borrow his iPod Touch, and this thing literally had a metric fuck ton of Tom Petty on it. I've never seen so much Tom Petty in one place. He is like the biggest Tom Petty fan that I know. Like that, I'll never meet someone who's a bigger fan of Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers than Jeff Tate. And I saw him. He's the one who broke it to me on Twitter that Tom Petty had passed away. So like that's like hearing. I can't even think of an analogy. Right? It'd be like hearing the Pope died from your super religious grandmother. Right?
Yeah. Like it's really weird because you don't hold them in that reverence that they do, but you know that they do.
Right. And it's not that I don't hold Tom Petty in reverence, right? Because like then thinking about it, I mean, I got my Tom Petty song. It's a song that like I always loved and never knew was a Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers song. And that's Change of Heart off of Long After Dark. Like that song used to be, no word of a lie, Infamous 2. When I was playing Infamous 2 when it came out, I would listen to Change of Heart on loop the entire time.
Man.
Because like a friend of mine had shared it on his Facebook wall, and I'm like, man, this song is really good, and it gets me going for this thing. But then also, thinking about Tom Petty, I can't help but think of you, Sejohn.
Yeah?
And
why is that?
Well, Super Bowl 42... that season that the Patriots were undefeated going into the Super Bowl against the Giants. And we sat at my house for the first half of that game, and then we watched the halftime show, which was Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers.
That's right. I do remember this. And then we decided...
to go up to Federal Hill to some weird, like, I can't even describe... I don't know the name of this hotel, but Rachel... her friend Vanessa, who's married to Zach. So, hi, connections to everybody. Zach from Board with Friends, not Zach, your brother. Her family had won a suite for usage of Super Bowl night. And, like, we were doing really well going into that second half of the game, right? As far as I can recall. Right?
Yeah,
so
we were doing amazingly well.
We're like, this is awesome. And then we'll go up to this thing. We'll get a little drunk. We'll have a good time. We'll be in Providence. It'll be this awesome experience. So we watched Tom Petty perform. And he did, like, Beast of Burden, right? was the last song that he did during that halftime set. And it became the theme of the night for us. Like,
oh, man.
Driving up to Providence, you and I are just singing at the top of our lungs, Beast of Burden.
No, I mean the Pats were about to win the Super Bowl. Like we were on top of the world,
undefeated,
and we were about to go in a weird hotel and watch this happen. And yeah, an undefeated season. It would have been. It would
have been history in the making. And we got to the hotel, and shit had gone down during our commute.
Yeah, we were so mad at ourselves for not watching. We were just
like, we're like, this is our fault, right? Like, if we had just stayed at my house, this wouldn't have changed, right?
Like, every bone in my body that is normally not suspicious in the least just jumped. It was just like, what have we done?
The song was not Beast of Burden. It was Refugee. I'm an asshole.
Oh, yeah.
Beast of Burden is Rolling Stones. I get those two songs super confused, and do you know why? That same year... we saw Fred Claus, which featured Beast of Burden, and we didn't see Fred Claus like once. I saw it at least 3 times in theaters.
Yeah, 3 times. We saw Fred Claus a few times.
So those are 2 songs that I associate with you and that time of year. But it's Refugee that we were singing top of our lungs. And then
every chance we got,
every chance we got that night,
chorus.
and like, so Tom Petty is like invariably linked to our friendship in like the dumbest way possible, right?
Yeah.
But it's so like, I mean, I thought like we're gonna record the show tonight. I mean, it's gonna be this thing, and now the fact that like I had like remarks prepared, like if he had passed away. And then, like, I was about to set, like, just RIP and share change of heart, right? Like, that was going to be my Facebook thing. And then I'm like, let me just check one more time. And then I'm like, oh, no, he might not be dead, right? LAPD, we can neither confirm nor deny the current status on Tom Petty. And it's just like, oh, okay, I'm not going to send that yet. But, like, it's also sort of a weird thing to talk about because that's the world that we live in.
Yeah, I know, man.
Right?
It's fucking weird.
Like,
we're getting information from everywhere right now, and now we don't know how to feel.
I feel like there's probably like a lyric too, right? Like, information's all around and still we know nothing.
Oh man, I am not in a place for that just yet. Wait
I'm
until the end of
sorry.
the show.
Okay.
Then we could, once we get to the end of the show and I get tinfoil hat again, then we can get back to
What's
that.
your tinfoil hat? I mean, your tinfoil hat is definitely on based upon one of the themes of what this episode is going to be. This sort of just threw me for a loop.
Yeah. Well, and before we get off of this really quick, I should point out it's not the only really weird celebrity possible death today that turned out to maybe not be one. I don't know if anybody was awake this morning when it happened, but apparently last night Marilyn Manson like got real badly injured at a show, and I don't mean to laugh. It's just that the first thing that they thought to do was throw a sheet over his body in front of thousands of people. This dude had just fallen off of a prop on stage, and these dudes ran out, looked at him, grabbed like a black sheet and threw it over him, and everybody was just like, we just watched Marilyn Manson die on stage. They just lost their crap on Twitter and like screaming, running out of the venue and all this. And then turns out that he didn't die. He had just like badly injured. So like they took him to the hospital and he canceled like 9 shows and stuff like that. But oh my God, like what terrible crowd control.
Yeah, that's not a way to like, you dark out the stage, you make an announcement, and oh yeah, covering with a sheet is bad. And also, it's just been a shit day for America, right? Like, because we have the largest shooting fatality event in American history today as well. Like,
yeah, it's just been another bad one, man.
Like, I mean, last time I checked, it was 59 dead, over 500 injured, right? Like, that's ridiculous. Like, this just has been a hard day all around for the country that we live in, and that I love. I can't say that I don't love America because we get to talk about this without fear of like being taken away for our beliefs.
Yeah, of course. And then we get to do this into microphones, and we get to record it and share it for forever and ever.
Posterity. Man, you were going to say prosperity.
That's
we're not prospering in this. It's just for posterity.
But so before we get too far off Tom Petty, and to maybe bring us back to a little bit of a lighter note, anybody that is waiting to find out what's happening tonight, do yourselves a favor, and while you're waiting, listen to Highway Companion. It's the album he put out about like 2005, maybe a little later than that. But it was kind of like a return for Tom Petty, kind of coming back, and it's a phenomenal album. I had it in my car, and I don't think that I ever took it out for like an entire like summer and a half.
I mean, I guess if we're giving Tom Petty things, you can find that Super Bowl 42 performance, and it's fucking exceptional. Mm-hmm. To watch that, it's 12 hours of just pure genius on the part of Tom Petty, and also King's Highway. There's a live version off of one of the anthologies that is one of the greatest recordings of that man ever. So hopefully, thoughts and prayers, everything goes well for Tom Petty. Our hearts are not broken, but in the event they are, these are great ways to send homage to him and remember him for the prolific artist that he was.
Yeah.
And also, before we get too far off topic on that whole thing, the other thing I was thinking is I didn't have a podcast in 2016. Like, I didn't have it. But I'm also kind of glad I didn't, because 2016 kicked our asses when it came to celebrity deaths. But none of them, I mean, like, David Bowie was really the only one that I shed a tear over. And that's because Modern Love came on the radio, and like it all just hit me. And that was like 3 months after the fact. Like I'm like singing this song, and I'm just like, holy shit, David Bowie is dead. But this year, while we've had this show, and it sucks that people have passed away, but like it has been people that do have some odd connection to my life, and that I feel affected by the loss of.
Yeah. No, for sure, man. It's been a hard couple of years. I think you know what it is though, is I think it's because we're getting to that point in our lives, man. Like we're gonna get to a point where the guys that we've been worshiping our whole lives are getting up there, you know? Like, and that's gonna be it now. Like from here on out, we gotta be ready for this. The weird stuff for me, the stuff that's always going to get me are the things like what happened to Anton Yelchin this year. Like that was completely unnecessary.
Yeah, that was
right.
oh.
Like that's the kind of stuff that's going to be hard. But like when it comes to these other guys, like we got to be ready. Like heroes at some point got to grow up too, And like this is going to suck if this Tom Petty thing ends up being true because like I do really love his music and I think that 66 is no age for a rock star to be done. Like you still got things you can do, and so like that's going to really suck. But hopefully things work out, and we'll find out.
So we're banking on things working out here at the Say Report. So I guess one other thing before we get to the main meat of this week's episode is it was 2 years ago, Sejohn, where our trajectories crossed, and we started on the path to what we're doing right now.
Oh yeah,
because it was Will and I driving around this great country, and we decided, we're gonna just drop in on Sejohn, basically unannounced.
I remember this visit, dude. I remember it well.
Yeah,
why?
It was like 3 days. Why are we sharing tonight? Because I
feel like there's parts of that night we maybe don't want to share.
Yeah, no, there's definitely some things that like stay quiet and stay secret. But overall, it's what definitely set us on the trajectory of like you and I doing this show together, and me. Sure. And you blessing me with an hour of your time each week. Like, in a lot of ways, this is just like a phone call that you and I have every week that we record.
Yeah, that's kind of
like,
exactly
in a lot of ways, it's exactly what it is. It's not, it's in every single way.
It's not kind of that, man. It is that, yes. We call each other and record our phone conversation. We have people to listen to it. That's the best part of this world.
And thank you so much to our listeners. But I would just feel remiss before going into the thing that I told you we're going to talk about this on Saturday. If I didn't say thank you so much for welcoming Will and I into your home at that time in your life, sharing all that your little college town had to share, and for confirming that you're family, brother. And I love you. So thank you.
I love you too, man. So what hole are you about to drag me into?
Oh, so here's the hole that we're about to drag you into. Have you ever seen the film Hard Rain?
Yeah, man, I freaking love Hard Rain.
How fucking good is Hard Rain?
Just throw me the money. It's so good.
It's so good on like thousands of different levels. Ladies and gentlemen, look forward to something from the Say Report regarding Hard Rain. More than just this conversation. We'll put something together because I didn't. Yes. I mean, like I figured of all the people in the world who would like love Hard Rain as much as I do, it would be Sejohn.
Well, here's the thing. I can't, and this is terrible because there's a lot of disasters right now out in the world, and I don't mean to make light of them, but every time somebody talks about flooding now, that movie is the image in my head. Just like when people talk about hurricanes or tornadoes, Twister is the first thing that comes to mind, like image-wise, right? Like whenever somebody talks about like major flooding somewhere, the first thing I think of is them like sandbagging up the church and stuff like that. Like, oh man. All right. Movie. It's so good. Anyway, so what is Hard Rain? Okay, so
Hard Rain is going to be our entry point into this. We were watching. Dale and I watched Hard Rain a couple of weeks ago because Dale had never seen it, and it was just on like cable. And I'm like, sit the fuck down. We're watching Hard Rain. So then I taped it, right, so that like we have Hard Rain for a little bit, like before the new TV season starts. So new TV has started. And we have to get rid of it. But I'm like, everybody in this house has seen this film, right? And my mother's like, no, I never have. And it's like, what? No, you have to see fucking Hard Rain. So
before we delete it off the DVR. I love that that's become a thing, by the way. But anyway, yeah.
So Saturday was stupid rainy in Rhode Island. Like, we had a hard rain going on here. So we got some Mexican food, and we sat down and watched Hard Rain. And during the opening credits, she saw Quaid, And she's like, "Oh, I hope it's the good one." And I'm like, "Well, it's Randy, so yeah." And she's like, "No, I meant Dennis." And I'm like, "Arguably, I think Randy Quaid is the better Quaid." And she's like, "What?" And I'm like, "Midnight Express, fucking mic drop, right?" Because him as Jimmy Dalton in fucking Midnight Express is exceptional. That
Doesn't he have like 4 Oscar nominations or
Yeah,
something
like
like that? Yeah.
he is a prolific artist, and like the fact that he can do something as inane as Cousin Eddie, something as like just like the sheer range of emotion that is required from him in Hard Rain, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then
yeah.
but then you also like him in Midnight Express. Like my mother didn't even believe me that he was in that movie. She's like, "There's no fucking way Randy Quaid is in that movie." I'm like, "He's sort of the emotional heart of the piece, ma." So then she's
Oh
like, "All right, well,
god.
let's watch this stupid movie about the rain, right?" This is before it got into
Let's
it,
watch
right?
this
She's
stupid movie
like
about
now
the
she's
rain.
mad. Like now she's mad that like I'm going to bat for Randy Quaid. And then we're watching the movie, and it's one of those. It's that scene where he switches. It is that scene where like you realize like the big twist of the movie, and it's sort
Yeah,
of
yeah,
like,
yeah.
and it's perfect. Like that comes in at the perfect moment.
I mean, not
And
to ruin another movie, but it's the Kaiser Sose moment,
oh, it is
really.
a
Like it's
Kaiser
the
Sose moment, one
yeah,
hundred
like
percent.
where you instantly realize everything you knew was wrong.
But like also you instantly like every little niggling question in the back of your head
Makes
suddenly is
sense.
answered.
Yeah,
Like so
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
oh, of course. Oh shit. Oh that was oh god. Movie. How dare you?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
and if we've given it away, I apologize. But if we haven't, go fucking watch Hard Rain.
I mean, kind of. That movie's better. I mean, that movie is good even with knowing its twist. That's what I was
Yeah,
trying to say.
but I don't think we've given it away. No, there's a twist in it. Most movies have twists
Surprise.
now. Um, and
Especially action thrillers.
my mother uttered what would become the title of this week's episode. What happened, Randy Quaid? And all I could think of was
Eternal question.
the eternal question is what happened to Randy Quaid. But all I could think of is the second time. No, was it? It might have been the first time. I don't know. One of the times you did Three Friends in a movie with us, we watched National Lampoon's Christmas Vacations
A
2.
lost episode,
Cousin
isn't it?
Eddie's. It is it's a lost episode. It was never released. Cousin Eddie's Island Vacation.
We should redo that
Oh
for this
yes.
show.
Oh, one
I
hundred
think that
percent.
that might have to be our Christmas episode.
I would love for that to be our
that's
Christmas
a promise I'm not
episode.
afraid to make right now.
Oh,
It's like
jeez.
definite siege and revisit Christmas Vacation, Cousin Eddie's Island Paradise.
Oh my god, I'm like mad at you right now because I've now seen it. Like it had been so long. Oh, it's too fresh, but I'll do it. I will totally let's try to recreate a lost episode.
Oh, I'm so
Yeah, so I'm not even going to talk about like because that movie has like a first for the entire National Lampoons thing, but I'm gonna keep it under my hat if we've like made a promise right now to do it.
yeah.
But like, so I know that you, of all the people in the entire fucking multiverse, know more about Randy Quaid than anybody else. So I thought I'd give you a platform to maybe discuss and answer the eternal question: what happened, Randy Quaid?
Basically, it turns out that he kind of well, legally what happened, what we are allowed to say actually happened, is that Randy Quaid and his wife at one point decided to skip out on a hotel bill, and the police are like, and apparently it was a pretty big one, and the police like tracked them down, and they were like, yeah, my wife did this. Randy Quaid says, my wife, this is all my wife's fault, and the wife is like, yeah, it was me. I don't know why, but she ends up having to like she ends up on the hook for this thing, and he ends up getting to like walk away from it, right? But then what he does is he decides to cart her off to Canada to run away, and they become refugees. He actually files for refugee status in Canada. So like he wasn't even on the hook for the bill anymore. He's like, oh, he's not responsible for this, and he apparently is the one that makes the decision to be like, we should run away now. And then they run off, and because he ends up helping a fugitive, he is now also wanted by the police. He's not going to just be able to do this and not, right? So then at some point, him and his wife decide, nah, we don't like it up in Canada. We're moving back down to Vermont. And then on the drive back down to Vermont, they get arrested because obviously they come across the border and they're like, you can't come in. And they sit them down. And I don't know what deal he struck, but being Randy Quaid, he's like, no, I'm just going to live in Vermont now. That's cool, right? And they're just like, okay, fine. And he lives with his wife in Vermont since 2015, completely untouched, despite the fact that he was apparently on the run for like 10 years.
You know what the saddest thing is? He was in Midnight Express. He understands the consequences, perhaps better than anybody.
I don't know, man. So that's the official story of what happened, right? But there's so much other weird stuff that went on, like the land deal. The reason why him and Dennis Quaid don't talk to each other anymore is because of literally because of a bad land deal in like swamplands of California. Like he bought some bad swampland and like apparently roped Dennis into it, and Dennis was pissed and hasn't talked to him for like 20 years. So like there's like weird little stories like that about this dude. What it seems like is he seems like he's your uncle. That everybody's got that uncle where he's a really good guy, but he is just dumb as rocks, right? Like everybody's got that character in their life.
Yep.
And he just finds himself in just terrible situations all the time. And you're just like, I know you don't mean it. What he is he's like Gomer Pyle.
He kind of is. That's sort of a, oh man, I can't first of all, ladies and gentlemen, I gotta give Sejohn all the credit in the world for being like, oh yeah, so here's the deal. Let me download you on the Randy Quaid situation.
It's such a weird thing, man. Like it's a saga. It is a saga.
Jeez. Yeah, okay, so I guess that's what happened, right? He became was there more?
Well, no, it's not that there's like more, but it's like that can't possibly be all. The question is like, what don't we know, right? Like this dude is like he did some amazing work. The best at he's one of the best parts of Independence Day. Like
he is one of the best parts, dude. Not another teen movie. I will give him all the credit in the world for his role as the father in Not Another Teen Movie.
Jeez. Oh man.
All right, so here's the deal. Here is 100% the deal, right? Randy Quaid, if this message that I am transmitting to you right now somehow gets through to you, the Say Report would love to have a conversation with you. If you are one of our listeners and you can get this message to Randy Quaid, we'd like to talk to him. We're not going to attack him. We're just going to treat him like an average guy and just talk. I would just love to talk to Randy Quaid.
I want to know how much of the stuff that ends up then being said about him is true, like the weird like conspiracy theory side of things. Because like as much as you read those stories, I never found anything confirming that he actually said anything. Like there's no weird statements. We have Tom Cruise talking about how he believes in an alien race invading his body, but we don't have shit on Randy Quaid, right? So like, why does everybody think of Randy Quaid and think of him as the nutball, but yet we get to see Tom Cruise make a $1 million film every year? Not that I'm against Tom Cruise.
No, I love Tom Cruise too. It's just interesting to me that like Randy Quaid, who, while it seems like he's made some dumb decisions, I'm not forgiving any of that. He hasn't done anything too crazy, and yet the entire world has written him off as a crazy person, and I don't understand it. Yeah, it's a weird narrative. It's a narrative that I just don't understand. So Randy Quaid, from the Say Report, if you want a chance to set the record straight, we will give you the forum to do that. And this is the moment where I wish that like we actually had the credentials and the credibility for him to like take us up on that offer. I'm gonna be honest. I'd love it. You're the best part of Midnight Express. That movie is exceptional. I fucking love Midnight Express. But like in a film that is just full of memorable moments, he is what stands out to me. And he's so fucking good in Hard Rain and all the other movies that we mentioned. And if you're in Vermont, man, I can be to you in 4 hours. Maybe 5 if you're at the top.
We could meet in Vermont. If
you don't want us to go to the Quaid estate in Vermont too, we'll meet in the middle, right? Yep. New Hampshire, live free or die hard, man. Let's
Supposedly
see her
he's up there
die.
with his own little tinfoil hat on right now, picking up these sound waves. So I
That's what
guess
I'm
we're good.
hoping, right? I'm hoping that like the
Yeah,
tinfoil hat. I mean, Sejohn, we all know he's always wearing tinfoil hats.
yeah,
So
I'm
like
wearing one right
if
now.
there's anything, if there's any person in the world who could attune the frequency of his aluminum foil to the exact frequency of Randy Quaid up in Vermont, it's Sejohn goddamn Sarowick. And now this, somehow related from Sejohn.
It's not actually as related as I thought it might be because I thought we were going to land in a much meaner place with Randy
No,
Quaid,
I
to be
love
entirely
Randy
honest.
Quaid. I
You
could
know,
never
that's
be
the
mean
thing,
to
right?
him. Do
Yeah,
you
yeah.
did you
So
want to
like,
be mean to Randy Quaid?
no, no, no. It's not that I wanted to be. It's just like considering the atmosphere around Randy Quaid, it just seems like that's how everybody ends up feeling about him, and that's just really weird. Like, because like I said, there really isn't any of that stuff there. And I guess the way that it's this thing's related is that I'm having some weird feelings about that whole thing with the new Jeepers Creepers movie is out, and and I don't know how to feel about it because when I was a kid, all right, so let's break down like the scary movie thing. Here we are. It's the first time we're recording in October. I felt it was right that we talk about a horror movie, right? So the thing is like I didn't grow up on horror films. I was not like when I was a kid, I was convinced I wasn't a fan. I won't say that I actually wasn't because I'd never seen any, so I was convinced I would not be. I was like, nope, no scary movies, just not what I do, right? And then I don't know, like 13, 14 years old, somebody like showed me Child's Play 3. And I was like, and I was mesmerized by the fact that they made movies like this. Like it was just such a weird, dumb concept with such like silly, goofy effects that I was like, wait a minute, this is what horror movies are? Not understanding that there would be a range, right? But I was just like, this is what scary movies are. I can do this. And suddenly I started watching everything, right? Jason, Mike Myers, like Mike Myers, Michael Myers, all of the scary ones. But like, there was just so I kind of started to develop this like taste for it, right? And Jeepers Creepers kind of came into the world at just the right moment where I was collecting like films. Like I was putting together my stable of like, okay, what do I consider to be like my stock standard? Like these are the horror movies that I compare every other horror movie to, right? And like Jeepers Creepers comes out and I really enjoyed it. Like it was weird. It wasn't scary the whole time. Like there was actually moments of like interesting like mystery and things like that. And it was so cool is what it was, right? Well, and then like, fast forward 10 years later when I'm like starting to actually like question, everything and young 20-year-old asshole who wants to like know everything about everything so that he can be a smart ass. I'm looking into all of this stuff about Jeepers Creepers because Jeepers Creepers 2 had like come around and been a thing and everybody was like talking about doing this stuff. And I found out all of this horrible crap about Victor Salva. Do you know any of this, Devin?
I only know the stuff that your brother shared
Mm. Yeah.
regarding the trailer. He's like, you should boycott this movie because
Yeah.
he is. I'll let you say it because I don't want to. I don't want to misstep.
Well, yeah.
I,
So
I might
this
not
is
know.
funny because I want to point out I did not realize that my brother was out there talking about this today too. Like I love that me and him were in the same space about this today because the thing is there's a little theater in town and so the movie Jeepers Creepers 3 was coming out and it came out as a special engagement one night only at the end of September and it got such a good reception from fans that they actually decided to release its small release in theaters all over the country and one of the small theaters that got it was near me and I've had these weird back and forth feelings about going to see it, right? And so like you learn about the dude that makes these movies. Victor Salva has made all three of the Jeepers Creepers films, and he made a whole bunch of movies throughout the late '90s and some of the '80s, including one called Clown House, which is this terrible horror movie about killer clowns that like these mental patients escape from. They take the mental patients to the circus, and the mental patients kill everybody in the circus and become killer clowns. And then they chase down a bunch of kids, right?
As
Like
they do, I
it's a terrible
imagine.
movie. Well, it turns out that while he was making this film, this dude was getting gross. I don't know how to put this in any delicate term because there is no delicate term for child molestation, right? Like this dude was molesting actors on the set. And like and it's not hearsay. It's not like some of this weird shit that we hear about people and we're just like, "Oh, none of this is verified." This straight up he was like filmed it, went to jail for it. Like they caught him, put him in front of a fucking judge, and a judge said, "You get like you get 3 to whatever years for this, and then it turns out he only served like a year and a half, and then like boom, he was out, and like he went right back to making movies, and freaking Francis Ford Coppola is the one that's like backing financially backing a lot of his films and stuff like that. Like this dude is just out there making movies, and people are going to him and enjoying them, and even I like saw one when I was a kid, not knowing anything about the world at that point, and like enjoyed it, and it became like one of those things that I reference all the time and in my head when I'm thinking about like, okay, what does this remind me of? Oh, this totally reminds me of Jeepers Creepers in that moment. Oh God, right? Justin Long is in that movie. I'm pretty sure he's the main dude in
Justin
that
Long is
movie.
definitely the main dude in
Yeah,
that movie. I
and
was
like
gonna like wait for
and the
that,
way
but
that
then you went to all of this, and it's like
yeah.
I don't want to associate Justin Long with that.
No, no, no. It's one of those things where like now I want like did Justin Long know what was going on when he did that? Right? Like you get these weird questions in your head. Whereas like somebody will go and see one of these movies without thinking twice because they just don't care enough about the fact that this dude is the director. They don't even look into it. Why would they care, right? Meanwhile, Randy Quaid ends up as like a subpart in a movie, and everybody's just like, worst part of that film because he's out of his mind, right? Like it's this weird world that like we inhabit where fans like they seem to have a real they seem to care a lot about what they consume, but man, like sometimes things like this exist, these weird bubbles of that I just don't understand. Like, I don't know, man. It was just this weird feeling I had all weekend with this movie being out just down the road from me. Like, I still, there's a part of me that really wants to see it because of how much that story means to me. But knowing that that story came from that dude, I don't know how I can consume it anymore, right? And, I have that problem with a few, like, really big actors out there that, like, I don't know if I'll ever be able to really enjoy Woody Allen thing anymore, I don't know if I'll ever be able to really dig into anything like Roman Polanski-ish. Like, I saw Ghost Rider before I really knew much about the Roman Polanski stuff. I had heard that he had been accused of things, but from what I understood, he was still making movies left and right. So from what I understood, it had never been amounted to anything. And then like after Ghost Rider, which I loved, I find out all of this stuff because everybody comes out and says like, yo, no, like this is all of the evidence and all of this. Now I feel really weird that like I enjoyed that movie.
I guess I'm I don't know. I don't know how to feel about this because like you're entitled to your opinion and you're not wrong to feel this way in any way, shape, or form. Like it is not the wrong opinion to have. To be presented with all of the facts that you just presented and then be like, yeah, no, maybe not. I get that. I totally understand that. I don't know, right? Like this,
Yeah, right.
this is
But
dicey
like,
territory.
there's a but. Like, say it, man. Like, we'll do. Like, this is what we do. Let's talk about this. Like, there is another side to this. There's a reason I was feeling squishy. If I was just straight up, it was a no. This would be a non-issue for me. I was like, nah. If it was just no, I'm never going to do that again. Then no, I'm never going to do that again. But it's not that. It's that piece of me that's like, is there a way at some point that I can come to terms with this and still consume this like art? Is there a way to do that? Like,
yeah, that's actually like the best way of putting it. You just nailed it. Because the question becomes, I'm sorry, this just feels like so much to like try to navigate. So I'm sorry if I'm not as succinct as I generally am.
huh.
Like he was convicted. He did his time for the crime. Granted, in a different time where it was not as grossly looked upon as it is today, right?
Sure. Okay. Right.
And like we live in a country where like you have this opportunity to be tried and found guilty, and then we also believe in rehabilitation in this country, right? Like
Right.
there is a certain amount of years that are assigned to a crime of that nature, and you serve your time and then you move on, right? Like
Yeah.
so.
Well, and I get that, but not to like completely backhand what you're saying because I do totally get what you're saying. But the other weird part about this whole story with this Victor Salva stuff is like a huge part of the controversy around him in this particular movie is that he apparently like wrote in a bunch of like really weird child molestation stepdad references into the story that the studio was like, you realize you can't do this, right? And he was like, oh, okay, and they cut it, but apparently it was like filmed and screened in some ways with that information, with that in there. So like there's this weird thing where like, yeah, no, you're like, I get the idea of rehabilitation and all that, but maybe he's not doing himself any favors.
Well, I think in some okay. So we're just gonna go down this whole fucking rabbit hole. Good for us, Sejohn.
Just
Did you see Bloodfather? Right. Let's talk about another person who's fallen from our graces, Mel Gibson.
right. I did not end up seeing
Over
Bloodfather.
the weekend, Will, our boy Will, was there when the trajectory started for the what you're listening to right now. The guy who says goodbye for us every week. He asked me whatever happened to Mel. And I'm like, who the fuck is Mel? Right? And he's like, Gibson, right? He was so good in What Women Want. And I'm like, oh, he revealed
He
himself
gets
to
to
be.
he gets to call him Mel because he lived in Australia for a couple of
Oh
years.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's
No,
why. And everybody there just calls him Mel. That's
he's
because
just
everybody
Mel.
knows everybody.
Everybody's on a first name basis in Australia.
You're right.
But he's like, he's so good in that. I'm like, yeah, but he revealed himself as a racist and an anti-Semite, and people tend to frown upon people who are those things. Of course I say that, but our president is saying that they're very fine people, a group of fucking anti-Semites and racists. So,
Yeah.
topsy fucking turvy in 2017. But, that put that whole thing together, and I'm like, that being said, right, like, he made a movie last year called Bloodfather, and I can't recommend it more. Like, I really enjoyed that film. And I feel like a lot of the things he put into that script and into that character were his own flaws as a way to address, I am aware of these flaws and I'm going to try to rise above them. Like it colored the movie a little bit. Like that he used to be this alcoholic and that he had to make terms with this stuff in that film because all that stuff about him in real fucking life. But then it also kind of felt like the narrative that he was trying to put into that film was, but I'm aware of it and I'm trying to rise above it. And that is why a lot of people said that Bloodfather, Mel Gibson might be back, right? Because, he's acknowledged it. So, I almost wonder if Victor Salvis, is that his last name? Salis?
Salva.
Victor Salva.
I think. Salva.
Maybe with fucking bad taste jokes like that, it was sort of being like, I'm acknowledging my past and I'm trying to make light of it.
Maybe, yeah.
And
maybe.
not that's a real hit or miss way of dealing with things, right?
Yeah.
But I could understand someone thinking like, this'll do it. This'll get me through.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is it all comes down to context too, man, right? Like the big thing right now is the reason that this is such a big issue with a lot of people is that contextually, there's a lot going on right now in the way that Hollywood, a lot of conversation going on right now in the way that Hollywood has been treating children for the last few years, 20, 30 years when I say few. I mean, the idea that this is a conversation that people are having now, So it's also one of those things where it's hard to in the moment because the atmosphere around a lot of that conversation is also really hard, and that changes. So maybe in 5 years, 6 years, when people aren't talking about this, maybe I won't have this hesitation to do this. I don't know. It's just weird thinking about the things that color my perceptions, right? And the way that my decisions about how and how I consume art, where I consume art, is all based on this sense of morality that I don't know. We never question, right?
No, I mean I get that. And the problem is that there's a spotlight on it right now, which is the worst fucking pun I could have tried to make right there. but there is a spotlight on it right now all across the board, right? It's strange, right? All of these negative things have existed in Hollywood for years, but it really does seem like a recent development that we're not divorcing ourselves from them when we enjoy entertainment, and on some level, good, right? People need to be held accountable for their actions. That being said, I completely forgive Michael Vick and was not against him playing football again after he was convicted of a horrible crime and then served the fucking time for it. I mean,
that's supposed to be the idea, right? That's supposed to be the concept, but
I mean, I understand that not everybody is going to, I hate to say it like this, but I kind of am the man of 1,000 second chances, right? I'm going to give anybody another chance, right? And then they can prove me wrong again, and hopefully it would never be something as horrific as giving a fucking convicted child molester the benefit of the doubt and then finding him molesting another child. right? At that
Yeah.
point, I'd probably kill the fucking guy. I'll be honest with you, because that's despicable to me. I'll be honest, it's a despicable thing to me. And yet I
Yeah, but the
say,
weirdness comes in, like the weirdness comes in the idea that like the dude just never he never stopped like working. Like Hollywood at no point ever put a stop to that, right? And like
but
that's weird, isn't it? Because meanwhile here we are talking about because meanwhile here we are talking about somebody like Randy Quaid who can't seem to get a fucking word in edgewise anymore because so where's his chance? Where's his second chance, right? And like you're totally willing to give it. Like I get that, but like the fact that the industry is not is questionable, right? And I think that's got to be a huge part of why people are so focused on it right now. Is like you see this weird imbalance and like who gets to stick around and who doesn't, right?
yeah, God, it's all over the board. I mean, it's also like it's that different time you understand type fucking bullshit that like
Hmm.
it really boils down to, right? Like Cosby, if Cosby were doing the shit that he was doing in the 70s and 80s when he was fucking Bill Cosby, like unfucking touchable, as we've proven that the man was unfucking touchable because he was not touched even years later, right?
Right, right.
Like nowadays we have less of a we we give less leeway for that kind of shit, right?
Hmm.
And I don't know if it's because like there's always going to be someone else. Like, okay, so it's been in the news a lot lately that Dave Chappelle has that problem with Key and Peele, right? He he finally came out with what his problem with that show was, and that's the fact that he felt like that they got to cruise on something that he had to fight for, and
Yeah. Yeah, man, but that's just always the message of the old guard. It like that's forever going to be
right,
the
but
guy. At some point, that's going to be us. At some point,
no,
we're
no,
going to be we're, you know what I mean?
no, I
What?
understand that, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that like there's always someone else who's willing to fill the gap,
Hmm.
right? Like that's the part of it. I'm not talking about the old guard and the complaint, right? It's the fact that like Dave Chappelle was doing cutting edge racial fucking humor when we were in high school, right?
Right.
And then like that there was never a gap from that, right? Like he decided
Hmm.
I can't do this stuff anymore, and then fucking Carlos Mencia stepped right fucking in. And then when
Right.
he was revealed to be a fucking like, a joke thief or whatever the allegations were, and that ended, like it continued, right? So
Hmm.
what Hollywood has learned, what the unfortunate thing about our media obsessed culture that we currently live in, is that there's always another fucking story. There's always
Hmm.
another fucking YouTube star in the waiting in the wings, right?
Oh, sure.
So like you don't give people the fucking leeway that they were giving people back then, right? I
Hmm.
mean, Francis
Yeah.
Ford Coppola backing Victor Salva, what was his fucking credential, right? He made fucking two good movies, right?
Hmm.
Like, can I be that guy who's a fucking asshole and said that Francis Ford Coppola made The Godfather and The Godfather Part 2, and like those were two amazing fucking movies? But like then he makes The Godfather Part 3, and that's the kind of movie that like could sink a fucking dynasty. But like we forgive it because he's still Francis Ford Coppola, and then he still goes on to have a career and be
Yeah,
able
yeah,
to
yeah.
back and do all these other things. Like Quentin Tarantino hasn't been as good as Quentin Tarantino was in the 90s, and yet he is still like the driving force between most of independent filmmakers in Hollywood these days.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. Like I feel like I muddled the message, but like we were so starved for an alternative in the 90s, right? Where like now everybody is a fucking alternative. You put a camera on fucking anybody in the world right now, you can produce fucking entertainment until
Yeah.
people are tired of it.
Yeah.
So like that's why we examine more and we care more about Scandal.
Oh,
Scandal
yeah,
is no
no, for sure.
longer
Like the system is completely different than it was in the 90s when all of that stuff went down with Salvo, like for sure. And I'd like to think that if something like that happened nowadays, that they wouldn't get to stick around, that there would be somebody else to bring in, right? I mean, the dude made like two or three independent films before any of that stuff came out, and he all of a sudden got like all of this like Hollywood backing and like and pulled out of that, and they produced more movies for him and all this stuff and like set him up. And I don't know if that would happen anymore. I don't think that they would get away with that because you're right. We are so investigative, I guess, with our consumerism nowadays that we care about that stuff in a way that we didn't 20 years ago.
I mean, like, now we get our news from wherever we want, right? Like, even going back to what we talked about in the beginning of this, and Tom Petty, right? Like, there were people who were saying that were reporting him dead as of last night. Like looking at it, like I had to actually wade through a bunch of things to get to the point that currently we're not sure if he's alive or dead.
Yeah, yeah.
I had to be an investigative journalist, where like nowadays, like our journalists, the people that we trust for information, CBS fucking News, for Christ's sakes, are the people who are reporting that Tom Petty is dead, and then like LAPD is like, yeah, what the fuck are you doing? No. But they still got ad clicks. They still got everything that they need to stay relevant in the ever-changing marketplace. And that's fucking disgusting on a level.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Wow, I didn't expect this. And I'm okay with it. I'm not upset about it. It's just, it kind of makes me sad. But then, like, I'm thinking about this, right? Pee Wee Herman, Paul Rubens, right? Takes out his genitals in an adult movie theater, right? He was blacklisted for like 20 years. He couldn't do Pee Wee Herman until like HBO was like, yeah, we can do Pee Wee Herman again, right? Like, and that in like the grand scheme of things, it's a lot less than what Victor Salva did.
Right. I know. It's one of those things that as we become smarter and smarter consumers, which is exactly what you're talking about with the way that we can, look into everything. But as we become smarter consumers, like, I don't know. I hope that this stuff kind of dissipates and goes away. And I hope that, 20 years from now, some kid out there doesn't have to think about this crap when they want to go and see a movie,
You know, that being said, the fact that you could go see it in an actual theater, I mean, I know that my opinion doesn't matter, but if I had to weigh in on it, I'd go see the movie, right?
Yeah.
Because yes, the guy, it's despicable, it's deplorable, right? But Hugh Hefner passed away, right? And he was known, like, there's a well-documented track record of him putting photos of underage girls in Playboy magazine, right? And that people still mourn him. It's fucking crazy. Like, you just need to base it on your own moral compass. My moral compass, the opportunity to see a movie that means something to me, I would take that opportunity. It's why I went to go see The Interview in theaters when I had the opportunity, because I'm not going to be afraid of fucking Korea telling me I can't see this movie.
You, me, and Kevin made that trip to go and see that movie.
To go see that movie in
we
theater.
had to drive. We had to drive an hour and a half.
Hour and a half. It was about an hour and a half. It was outside Salem.
Yeah. We spent longer in the car than we did in the theater.
Yeah, that's 100%. But it was a great day. Like, and I'm glad that we did it. And it's like, I don't know. Like, at the end of the day, your own moral compass it needs to be your guide, right? Your own Jiminy Cricket is the one who's telling you what you should or shouldn't do. And hopefully the world can calibrate to one fucking standard that makes sense. Hopefully people who, like, come on, man. The Catholic Church still protects fucking priests who molest children. That's fucking disgusting. Because these are people who are supposed to be trusted. Right? And it's like well documented that like they'll go to the fucking mattresses on this shit. Fuck you for bringing up Francis Ford Coppola, because all I can think of is Godfather analogies. But
yeah, man. Well, all right. So I think that we've gotten to a point on that where it's just. I think you're right, man. Like, everybody's got to think of this for themselves. So I propose that for the last few moments of today's show, you allow me to go through some of Randy Quaid's IMDb trivia.
Oh, God. You know what? That'd be great. I'm just going to take 1 second before we start this, because that's brilliant. Like, that will hopefully be a good note. And also, we should check in to see if we have any more news on Tom Petty.
Yes.
Cuphead came out over the weekend.
Oh, my God. It finally came out.
It's so fucking good. It's so fucking good. Play Cuphead if you can.
Forever.
It's excellent. It's excellent.
All right.
So that's it. So let's Randy Quaid, and then while you're doing that, I'll see if I can get a less quantum state for Tom Petty to end out the
All right.
episode.
Allow me to start with the very first piece of trivia that I find interesting. Just, bro.
I've lost you. I didn't hear anything you just said.
Oh no. Hello.
Hello. You can take it from the top again.
Okay, here's the first piece of trivia that I found super interesting about Randy Quaid. He is 5 inches taller than Dennis Quaid.
I would never have thought that.
Exactly. Isn't that really weird? Like it's a dumb thing to know, but also I never would have guessed that. All right, let's see. He met his wife, Evie Quaid, on the set of Bloodhounds of Broadway. She was a production assistant, and she was driving him around when they met. I thought that was really cute.
That's a nice meet
Also,
cute. I can get behind that.
Also, the two of them have 7 frozen embryos together. That's another piece of trivia that's out in the world. He does have one daughter from another marriage, but apparently the two of them have just been saving him for, I don't know, a rainy day, I guess.
I'd like to go back and propose that we write the movie of Randy Quaid meeting Evie Quaid. I think that would be fucking gold. I would watch that movie
man.
all day.
Let's see. There's a lot of like relationship stuff in this. He is the ex-brother-in-law of PJ Souls, who is awesome.
He is
Brother-in-law of Kimberly Buffington Quaid. Let's see. Okay, here's where the good stuff comes in. He at one time filed a lawsuit against Focus Features and the producers of Brokeback Mountain because he was told that it would he was told it would be a low budget art house film with no prospect of making money when he took the job. So he accepted like a really low pay rate for it, and he filed a lawsuit against Focus Features because then it came out and it won 3 Oscars that year.
Not only that, but they attached 2 of the biggest fucking stars in the country to that film.
Yeah, he apparently didn't realize while it was happening.
When he showed up to work and Heath fucking Ledger and Jake Gyllenhaal are there, that's when you should be like,
do you think he even knew? Do you think he even knew who Ang Lee was?
Oh my god! Well, he had just made the Hulk, right?
Ang Lee had just made the Hulk. Yes, and we all know Randy Quaid loves the Hulk. So.
No. I'm saying like Ang Lee did not have cachet going into Brokeback Mountain.
Oh my
like
God.
I could understand how you might get flim-flammed.
Yeah. Yeah, so he apparently was really pissed off when that movie came out and it turned out to be this like huge deal. Let's see. He was eventually banned for life from the Actors Equity Association as the result of fellow actors' official complaints about his behavior during a 2007 run of Lone Star Love. It was a retelling of The Merry Wives of Windsor set in the 1860s. That is amazing.
That sounds fucking awesome.
Randy was cast as Colonel John Falstaff. Okay. He was fined $81,572, oddly specific, by the union for his actions in Seattle, the equivalent of 2 weeks' salary for the entire cast. All 26 members of the cast brought charges against Quaid, maintaining that he physically and verbally abused his fellow performers and that his oddball behavior forced the show to close. Another major issue was Randy's costume, over which he insisted he have final approval. He dyed his hair beet red and wore a codpiece the size of an official NFL football. Reacting to Equity's decision, Quaid said, "I am guilty of only one thing, giving a performance that elicited a response so deeply felt by the actors and producers with little experience in my creative process that they actually think I am Falstaff."
Wow.
End quote.
Now, like, I have to be honest though. IMDb, anybody can put whatever they want up there, right?
That's the thing. Is that's what I mean by unsubstantiated. Like none of this can actually be substantiated, but these are the kinds of stories that are out there about him and his wife. Oh, here we go. Last thing. Here we go. Mid-2017, Quaid makes his first trip to New York City to film a role in his latest film, _wait. I don't know if the underscore is supposed to be there or not. Returning to his Vermont home afterwards. Despite still being a legal fugitive from California, no action was taken by state officials to ever bring him back. So there you go.
So wait, he's going to be in a movie?
Apparently, we have to look for this film, Wait. I don't _wait.
And we also have to make sure that the director didn't like molest children.
Oh,
I want to
man.
make sure you can utmost enjoy it. No, it's true. Like, so really, what this episode was about is fucking perception.
Mhm.
And what happened to Randy Quaid? If we're gonna wrap it up, right, and try to have a message, is everybody decided to perceive him one way, and no one is gonna change their mind, right?
Right.
And
Right,
he
exactly.
and he apparently, based on like just that thing about I gave a performance so powerful, and I have seen him give powerful performances before. I 100% believe that he is one of the greatest actors that I will ever witness act. That's 100% true. Cause like just his range and the shit that I have seen him in, right? He
Yeah,
does
yeah.
not care that the world perceives him the way that they perceive him. So he's not going to go out there and he's not going to waste time to make sure that people like him. And I kind of respect him for that.
Yeah.
Especially in an industry that like cares so much about your fucking image. And again,
And so I think we put him right up there, right up next to our picture of Brendan Fraser, right over the bed, you know?
yeah, let's be. That's what I'm going to say, right? The Say Report. We are championing all of these people who like they just got a raw fucking deal, man.
Yeah, come on back. We want to see
back.
you. We want
The
to
Say
give you that
Report.
second
The
chance.
Say Report will be your safe harbor in the storm. So if you have any leads on how we can get in touch with Randy Quaid, I can be reached at Devon D. Decker on Twitter.
You can get me at Siege versus the World on Twitter.
And until then, William, take us home.
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your host Devon Decker and Sejohn Serwick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.